It's April 23rd, sightseers, and you can see the mountains still have snow on top of them. And look, there's a B out there. That stands for Beaver, Utah. The next small town we're going to feature in this epic cross-country road trip. To find Beaver, all you have to do is get off at the appropriate exit on Interstate 15. As you can see, you can find fresh taco in Beaver.
And I'm liking this town already.
I knew I shouldn't have pointed that out to him. Moving on. Beaver City, settled in 1856, is now in the heart of cow country. That's right. Once you head away from the interstate, you'll find yourself in the midst of farms, cows, and cattle. See? Interstate 15 is over yonder. And then here we've got an active working farm with hay bales, cows, etc., along with this really interesting old historic brick home. According to this historical marker that happens to be set up in front of the farm I just pointed out, there was in October of 1866 an attack by hostile Native Americans upon a settlement that used to be here. The attack was centered mainly on one home. It was the home of Mr. and Mrs. Lee. They lived there with their children. They had 2 daughters and a son. And then there were several others along with them that were barricaded inside that home. It was a fierce attack, lasting practically the entire day. In the end, one of the individuals, along with the Lee's son, managed to make an escape. The 2 of them took separate trails into town, into Beaver, where they sounded the alarm. Militiamen came out to the homestead, but by the time they arrived here, the Native Americans were gone. And that's what happened right here, just outside of Beaver. As you're driving into Beaver, if you look to your left, you'll notice this old, iconic neon sign for One Sleepy Lagoon Motel. The lagoon, surprisingly, is still here, and the motel itself appears to be undergoing renovations. The Sleepy Lagoon Motel sounds like the perfect place to take your family on a vacation. I wonder how many of you out there remember the Sleepy Lagoon Motel when it was in its heyday. If you do, we want to hear from you. Drop us a note down in the comment section below. Now there's a sight for sore eyes here in Beaver. It's a weenie! A little wiener dog out there, roaming around. By the way, that brick building looks pretty interesting. Unfortunately, I don't know what it used to be. Perhaps we'll be able to find somebody in town who can shed a little light on the subject. Just up the road a little ways from that brick home I was ogling over, you'll find another historical marker. This historical marker talks about how in February of 1856, during, I may add, 0-degree weather, the very first pioneers came down to settle in the valley to create Beaver. Prior to that time, the land had been rejected, considered unfit for any type of cultivation. But the amount of water here gave them courage. At a mass meeting in Parowan, some of the more venturesome families were selected. They came down here, faced the seemingly impossible, and redeemed the valley. Thinking about how that early meeting might have went, I kind of wonder how many of those adventuresome families were, volunteered to come down on their own, or if they were just selected because of some reason or another. You know how it is in a meeting, whether it be for work or some social organization you belong to, and if you show up late, or perhaps you were not paying attention, and then all of a sudden you find yourself being volunteered for something you didn't want to do. I kind of wonder if that's what happened to some of these families. Regardless though, good for them because they ended up coming down here, fighting the elements, and establishing Beaver. Now these look like some happy cows just laying here, enjoying the sunshine today. This is how cows should be. Allowed to graze, enjoy the weather, the sunshine, the fresh air, instead of being stuck in a stanchion all their life, like a lot of the ones we see up in Wisconsin. Anyways, I want to point out, across the street is the Beaver Nursery, where you can find America's best water free. Oh yeah, this is good. Well, being in Wisconsin, I think you have a competitor. The story, by the way, about the water is that a few years ago, Beaver, the city of Beaver, Beaver City, let me clarify, I want to make sure I got it right, actually went to a competition, a nationwide competition with their water. And guess what? They won several years in a row. And as it just so happens, here at the Beaver Nursery, you can go on inside and get yourself a free cup of their icy cold, refreshing, fabulously tasting water. Of course, there are lots of other reasons why you'd want to come and check out Beaver's Nursery, including their lovely selection of plants, but the water is what drew me in. The other thing you'll notice as you're driving into town is the ranger station, the Beaver Fish Lake National Forest Ranger Station. Here you'll learn all kinds of important information, such as what roads are open in the district, places to camp, rules, regulations, and of course, you can get all kinds of maps. Marty, you could almost stand in for Vanna White there.
You bet. Get me a blonde wig to throw on my bald head.
I thought maybe without the blonde wig, but hey, the blonde wig works too.
Saw that van there? Looks like the van that was in Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, except for it's the shorter version.
Well, look at this. Beaver City has a map of their tourism amenities. And if you're wondering where I'm at, right here. You are here. Across from the city park, which you can see right here. The park. And over there is another historical marker. We'll go check that out in a moment. First, I want to show you something on the map I noticed. Who remembers Shopko? Good old Shopko, a Wisconsin-based shopping experience extravaganza. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little bit dramatic, but you know, Shopko was based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it was a great place to shop for so many people for so many years. It's been out of business now, I want to say, at least 4 or 5 years. I did do a couple of videos in some of the local Shopkos back in Wisconsin when they were shutting down, just to show, you know, the shutdown process or what you could find in the stores as they were closing out. If you want to go check those videos out, go ahead. Maybe it'll take you down memory lane about Shopko. Anyways, let's move on and go check out this historical marker that's sitting here. You can see it's placed in front of this log cabin, this old rustic looking log cabin that's sitting here. And if you look over here, you can see that the log cabin has a sign on it saying Boy Scouts of America, Troop 0323. I'm assuming that means that the cabin belongs to the Boy Scout troop, and this is probably where they have their meetings. But I don't think the historical marker has anything to do with the Boy Scouts. Instead, it was erected to commemorate the site of the Beaver Stake Tabernacle. According to the plaque, in the years of 1865 to 66, a tabernacle was built by the pioneers. This building was used for church and other public gatherings. It had an assembly area, a full basement, a gallery. It even had a tower with a large bell, which, interestingly enough, there's a bell here. It doesn't say, but I wonder if the bell was from the old building that was here. Apparently, after about 76 years or so being in use, they tore it down and then they built something else, which according to the placard is now the home of the Daughters of Utah Pioneers. Interestingly enough, this marker was put up in October of 1940, which means this building here is also historic. Speaking of historic, there are a number of larger buildings here that are historic. Beaver, if you didn't know, is the county seat, which means it's home to the county courthouse, and that building is definitely historic. We'll get to that in a little bit. First, I want to show you one of my all-time favorite buildings, the public library. Since it does appear to be open today, we're going to go on inside and see if we can find out some more information on the building itself. I just learned some fun stuff about the library here. Now, I'll put this up for you so you can see. The windows here have this special design. The librarian called it a spider web design. And when you look at it, yes, it definitely looks like a spider web. According to what she told me, the building was started in 1916, finished up in 1918, and the original grant from Carnegie was $10,000. She also said it was her belief that this was one of the last of the Carnegie libraries to be built. Pretty cool. I just love how those windows look. Since we're on the topic of historic buildings, I thought I'd take you over to the courthouse next. It's on Center Street, and if you look over here to this set of buildings, you can see the Beaver Press, and then the courthouse. The Beaver Press, for those who don't know, has been the weekly county seat newspaper since 1904. The courthouse is on the National Register of Historic Places and was built between the years of 1877 and 1882 at the cost of $10,900. Considered one of the finest examples of pioneer architecture, it has survived a fire, an earthquake, and intended demolition. Now a museum, visitors are welcome Tuesday through Saturday, June 1st through August 31st. Wow, look at that. I've seen some courthouses, but this one I think takes the cake. There are so many fascinating details about this structure, from the clock tower to the weather vane to the balcony. To adequately portray it, I don't think my video does it justice. You really just need to come out and see it in person. If you can. I realize that for some of you, this is the only way you'll ever get to see it. Over here, by the way, next to the courthouse, is a statue of somebody rather important. It is Philo T. Farnsworth, the father of television.
What?
That's right. Old Philo here, who was born in Beaver, by the way, was responsible for coming up with the first fully functional video camera tube. He was also the first to come up with a fully functional, completely electronic television system. In other words, thanks to old Philo here, we've got TV. Moving on, we can see across the street another historic building. It too is on the National Register of Historic Places and was built between 1908 and 1909. It's the Beaver Opera House, and it was used as such for over 2 decades, attracting many famous performers. Later, it became the site of the National Guard, and now it's the Opera House Civic Center. Now, it's my understanding that if we go around the corner here, we'll find another historic building that's also on the National Register of Historic Places, though not for what it is today. And that building is the Conrad Grimshaw Firehouse, otherwise known as Beaver Fire District Number 1. And while you'd think that by looking at it today that it's always been a fire station, that's not the case. Built in 1896, this building was originally used as a hall for the Beaver Relief Society. The Relief Society, for those of you who don't know, is an organization for women who are a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. So if I understand it correctly, the building was originally built for them and was used as a general meeting area. Later, it was used by the Beaver Board of Education, and at some point it was also used by a feed and grain firm. Quite the history for a building that for all intensive purposes looks like it's always been the fire department. Oh, this is neat. I was walking past the laundromat / dry cleaner here and noticed that up above they have what appears to be a light fixture made out of maybe an old washing tub. I like when you see things like that. It adds just a certain bit of charm or character to a place. Seeing as we haven't heard from Marty in a while, let's go see what he's been up to. I know he's been hanging out, doing his own thing as I've been walking around. Hey Marty, what you been up to?
Editing videos for Meandering Marty.
That's right. For those of you who don't already know, Marty, or Meandering Marty as he is now known on YouTube, has his
Sightseeing Sally Security.
has his own YouTube channel, and he's got one video that already has over 5,000 views, which, if he keeps growing at that rate, I'll be all set to retire and he can take over. Well, look, Marty's gonna join me. I don't think he's ready for me to retire. Up over here, I noticed something that looked pretty old, but I'm not sure. So I thought Marty could come take a look at it and give me his thoughts on it.
Unfortunately, this one doesn't spin. I don't know if it broke at one time, but normally they spin in the middle and have clear glass. Kind of neat, you don't see them too often anymore.
If I remember right, my dad used to go to a barber shop that had one of those out in front, but that was so long ago, and my dad doesn't go to a barber anymore. My mom cuts his hair, or shaves it, because there's very little there to cut. Yeah, he's got the Marty do, except Marty's shaving it just for the heck of it.
Because Marty's cheap and it saves money.
I also think it makes Marty look a lot meaner and more fitting of the security shirt.
I'm already crabby. You want to make me look worse?
Our next stop is going to be over in this bank of buildings here where you see the one called Sherwood Forest. The guys next door have been working all day, and we've been wanting to get in by the Sherwood Forest to check it out, and it looks like now we have the opportunity. Oh, look at it. Everything glows in here. Oh, this is so trippy. Merlin's Cave. Don't touch the branches though. Wow. This is so cool. I love it. I want a room like this at home, including the little beaded entryway. How do I get out? Help me. That was a neat store. Seeing as this is an agricultural area, I would be remiss if I didn't make at least a stop here at the Creamery. Basically, the Creamery is divided into 3 areas. There's the kitchen where you can order food. There's the retail area where you can purchase cheeses and other gift items. And then there's my personal favorite, the parlor, where you can get ice cream. Let's see what's on the menu today. Ooh, there's some good flavors. They even have my all-time favorite, mint chip. But, oh, so many choices. I may have to go off the deep end and try something new. Oh, nuts. Somehow I managed to get ice cream all over myself, but I guess that's just an indication of how good that ice cream was. It was so good, in fact, that I have a new favorite place to get ice cream. Just that I'd have to come all the way out to Utah to get it. Well, moving on, I wanted to show you a few more sights here in the downtown. There's this building here, which used to be an old theater. Now it houses a place called Soda Fix, where you can get pretzels, smoothies, specialty drinks, pebble ice, and cookies. Look, there's the old ticket booth where you would have paid your money, and then they would have handed you your ticket, and you would have went on inside to go see whatever was showing for the night. Creature from Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's Bride, Footloose, you know, the old classics. Then across the way, you've got the Beaver Drug, Floral, and Gift, and some really beautiful clouds filling in the early evening sky. That's one thing I can't get over, is just how beautiful the scenery is around here. The clouds somehow just look even more intriguing than they do back in Wisconsin. It's got to be the mountains, I guess. Speaking of mountains, you have a really awesome view of the mountains right here, looking towards the bee in the Beaver. It's almost 6:30 and things are starting to wind down. Not as much traffic, not as many cars and trucks rolling down the main drag here in Beaver. There isn't anybody even parked on the main street right now. A reminder that this is a small town and things do get quiet, even if it is pretty bustling during the day. Check out this mural that's painted on the side of Beaver Sport and Pawn. They've got, you know, the fish. I believe that's a rainbow trout that the guy is fishing for. And then, if I'm not mistaken, that might be an elk right there. And then there's some sheep, mountain sheep maybe, with a guy photographing them as they cavort on the side of the mountain. Interestingly enough, the building where Beaver Sport and Pawn is located used to be a hotel. That's if the sign up above, which unfortunately you can't read because of the sun backlighting it, that sign says Hotel Low. I'm assuming that means that was a hotel. Speaking of hotels, motels, places to stay here in Beaver, if you go down just a little ways, you'll find the Motel Delano and RV Park, advertising low rates, free Wi-Fi, and color TV by RCA. Our second to last stop is the El Bambi Cafe, formerly a truck stop.
So how many people remember when they were younger and when they had to call back home to their parents to let them know where they were, and you had to drive around and look for one of them signs? How many remember that?
Unlike Marty, I don't have that memory. Out of all my friends back in the day, I had a curfew. And though I never had to check in, I just had to be home when the curfew. My curfew was 10 o'clock. That meant 10 o'clock on the dot you were home. Well, sometimes it'd be 10:05, sometimes it'd be 10:10. But really, it was all about making sure I got home in time for curfew. And my parents never made me actually check in. It was just more or less, you be home on time. And for our last stop, the High Country Fuels Food Mart, because supposedly this is where you're going to find your I Love Beaver paraphernalia. Reportedly, this is the only place in town where you can get your official I Love Beaver merch. There you go, Marty. You can get yourself a t-shirt or something.
Fun stuff.
No matter where you are in town, if you look to the east, you'll see the B for Beaver.
And there you have it, sightseers. Beaver City, Utah, an American town with a lot of stories to tell.
There's even the one about how an infamous outlaw,
Butch Cassidy, we all know him,
was born here. But seeing as we've just run out of time, we'll have to save that tale for another day.